Welcome to the very first edition of Head in the Clouds. I am Ken Hartman, a certified SANS instructor and content creator. For today's episode, we will be talking about JQ, what it is, and how to make it dance. JSON, or JavaScript Object Notation, is virtually everywhere, and is often the default output format of many command line interfaces, including the command line interfaces for AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. In the SANS Cloud Security curriculum, we frequently use JQ in our labs to manipulate the output of the various commands, and we expect that the student will dive in deep enough to understand what that command does. However, unless one takes the time to learn JQ systematically, they will not be able to tap into the power of this amazing utility. So for this episode, let's explore some of the power of JQ using Cloudy and cloud security use cases. Here we go. Well, first off, what is JQ? Well, let's run the man JQ command. The man page is a helpful resource, but don't forget to RTFM, read the fine manual. And the manual is available at the developer's website. You can also find the instructions to download and install JQ from the same website. Next, let's see what version of JQ we have installed. This way you can use the appropriate version of the manual. For our next several examples, we will use a very basic AWS IAM policy file. This file can be downloaded from the link in the show notes. All right, let's take a look at it. Here we can see that it's just a very basic JSON structure. But this is a good one for us to start with. So typically JQ is designed to take JSON as input and transform it and write it back to standard output. But frequently you'll see it piped in from another command. JQ uses one or more filters to transform the input, and collectively these filters are referred to as a program in the JQ manual. And so far we've only used one filter, and that is the period. The period simply takes the input and sends that to standard out. By default though, JQ will pretty print the output and colorize it so that it's more readable. Taking a look at our policy.json file, we can see that there is two top-level keys, version and statement. Let's extract the version. We can also extract the statement. The statement has some child objects. The next level down is an array, as indicated by the square brackets. We can also see that it is an array that consists of a single object that in turn contains other elements. To get the contents of the array, let's run and if we want to access the effect element, we can do that by adding that onto our JQ filter as follows. Note that this functionality is pretty much the same as if we had used the filters consecutively, as shown. The pipe operator combines two filters by feeding the outputs of the one on the left to the input of the filter on the right. And this is just like the Unix shell's pipe, if you're familiar with that. Now, if we want to access the action element, we can do that by adding that onto our JQ filter as well. And this program returned an array consisting of 4 items. To get the items from the array, we add the square brackets again. Now we can also play with this array. So for example, to extract the first element of the list, what we can do is we can put the index for the first element, which is a 0. Similarly, we can access the third element of the array, We could even access the last element by using -1, or the second to the last using a -2. We can access elements 2 through 3 using this, and we can access all but the first element as such. Note that the command that was run in the last example, it put the result back into an array. So to extract it, what we can do is we can just tack on another set of square brackets. There we go. Now that we've talked about how the square brackets work, let's discuss commas. If two filters are separated by a comma, then the same input will be fed into both, and the two filters' output value streams will be concatinated together in order. JQ can also do math. So as an example, and we can do addition. We can even do grouping operations using parentheses. Here it is just disregarding the input and returning the mathematical result, but JQ can also operate on numerical input. Or if we wanted to return the result as an array, we just put the filter in square brackets. By the way, you can return the result in a compact format by using the lowercase -c. For the next set of examples, we're going to use a more complex JSON file. We're going to create this file using the AWS EC2 describe instances commands, and we're going to redirect that into a file called describeinstances.json. Now, so that you're working with the same file that I'm going to use in my examples, we've posted a hyperlink to this file on the show notes, and you can download that using the wget command. Now, to view the file, we could use the Linux less command. We can scroll up and down. We can see the file, but it's not colorized. We like the colorization that comes with the JQ command by default. However, if we use the JQ command, we get the nifty colorized output, but we can't scroll up and down. But wouldn't it be nifty if we could have the best of both worlds? Well, you can with the right command line switches. Let me demonstrate. So let me show you what those are. We use -C to tell JSON to colorize it, even when piping into another command, and the -R switch in conjunction with less, which tells less to repaint the screen using the colorized input. Both options need to be used together, but now we have scrollable colorized output. Using the last command, let's take a look at the top of the JSON file. Can you come up with the filter command to extract the instance IDs? Or what we could do is we could pipe it into the head, the Linux head command, which doesn't need the -R switch. There isn't a -R switch for head. We can now see the JSON data structure. So can we come up with a filter to extract the instance ID? There we go. So now we've got all the instance IDs. There's a shortcut if you're like me and you're lazy and you just want to get a quick and dirty listing of the IDs using a technique called recursive descent. So we use ... instead of the single dot. We also use the question mark. But look at all the nulls. Note that the question mark is needed to suppress the errors as JQ descends the data structure, but instead it outputs a null. And because it is a large data structure, we end up with several nulls. Now we could pipe this into the Linux sort and unique commands, but let's do this using JQ. Oops, what we need to do is make it an array. There we go, but we still have a bunch of nulls, so let's add in the unique filter. There we go, but we still have a single null in our result, so let's remove it. How about that? And then if we want to remove the data from the array, we just add in 2 more square brackets. Another thing that we use quite frequently is selecting an object based on the value of a key. So based on the last exercise, we can see that we have 4 EC2 instances. Well, let's use a select filter, return the object that has a specific value for any key. As an example, we could use this technique to select one of the instances based on its instance ID. Select the instance ID equals, and then the ID number for the instance. We can also construct objects. In much the same way that we use the square brackets to construct an array, we can construct objects using curly brackets. So recall our comma operator. We can make these into an object using curly brackets and setting a key for each value. There's a shorthand that can be used if you do not need to rename the key. In that case, you just provide the name of the key before the comma. In the next example, the key's instance ID and instance type are preserved from the input, whereas the other 2 are renamed. Now let's put all 4 objects into an array. Ew, that did not give the expected result, did it? Our open square bracket is in the wrong place. There we go, much better. Now let's make it part of an array with a key called mySystems. Need to put in the closing bracket. There we go. Very nice. Now let's add in launch time and save that to a file. Need the comma, but right before, to delineate launch time from the public IP address. And now we're just going to redirect it. Let's take a look. Now let's sort this by launch time. These 2 were launched at the exact same time, but a few minutes later, the next one was launched, and then a few minutes after that, the 4th one was launched. Alternatively, we could group it by availability zones. First two were launched in the same availability zone, US East 1A. We have one in US East 1B and one in US East 1D, all separated into their own arrays within the big array. We can even add in a new key value pair for all objects into our original array. We can even use JQ to modify values of a JSON object. For these next examples, we're going to use a trust policy. The trust policy is available via the hyperlink in your show notes. You can download that using the wget command as well. All right, let's take a look at this. What if we wanted to append the string 99 to the SID? Well, we could use the update assignment operator as follows. The update assignment operator is the pipe equals used together. Now note that when we're working on strings, the plus sign performs concatenation. We could also use the regular assignment operator, which is a simple equal sign, if, for example, we wanted to change a value. To demonstrate, we can change the effect of the policy to an explicit deny. Well, that's it for our inaugural episode. JQ can do so much more, and we've only scratched the surface. There are many more operators, support for format strings and regular expressions, and many other features that we just didn't have time to cover. So again, be sure to read the manual. And if you have thoughts or comments on today's episode, feel free to chime in on our moderated Google group by shooting a note to headinthecloudsecurity@googlegroups.com. Tune in next time for another installment of Head in the Clouds. Announcements of new episodes are made on the SANS Cloud Security Twitter feed. Meanwhile, be sure to check out the other great videos in the SANS Cloud Security YouTube channel. So long and take care.